Well, thank you everybody for being here tonight for this edition of Live Talks. Today we are honored and very pleased that Steve Waterman has accepted our invitation to give you a presentation about Winlink, which most of us already, most of us are familiar with Winlink, and it's a useful tool. We're going to be learning a bit more about it tonight. This is the first one of a couple of sessions that we're going to be having with Steve. So we really appreciate taking his time to be here with us tonight. So I will give the floor to Steve.
Okay, thank you. My name is Steve Waterman, and I am the co-founder of Winlink, and enjoyed being a part of the predecessor to Winlink, pre-Windows, in a program called AppLink, and that was the Amtor Packet Link. And before there was internet, we used AppLink to link VHF packet networks together over HF, so that if you were in one island, you could communicate with through AppLink to another island and have no problem with email messages at any rate. This is pre-email, pre-SMTP mail, pre-internet. When Windows 3.1 arrived, we adopted that platform, and it became Winlink. And then shortly thereafter, the internet came available, and email became available, and the program actually did more with the maritime community, cruising amateur radio maritime community, than anything else. But as of late, emergency communication has been the forte of Winlink, and it has evolved into an emergency email system. Let me give you a little information about myself. I was first licensed at 12 years old in 1955. I'm 82 years young, and I'm formerly the director of development for Vanderbilt University, where I served for 9 years. I retired from a network design company that I was a portion of, where I stayed for 19 years, so many years ago, I think around 2000. Since then, I've become very active with the Winlink system in promoting Winlink for emergency services. I'm a Williamson County, Tennessee Emergency Management Agency reserve. I'm a reserve for the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, a state emergency management agency. I'm a member of the FEMA Regional Emergency Communication Coordinating Working Group for Region 4, 5, and 10. I'm the FEMA Region 4 OXCOM Subcommittee Chair for Volunteer Resources. I'm the co-founder of this system, past president of our Amateur Radio Safety Foundation, which is a corporation that funds and runs Winlink, and currently on the board of directors and the Winlink development team, and I'm the current Winlink administrator for all services, amateur radio and other. Frankly, I've been in California, from Nashville, Tennessee to California since August 21st. And the last several days, I've caught a wonderful cold, and it's treating me so-so. So if you can still understand me, that's wonderful. We can't count on normal communication infrastructure completely. We have all kinds of disasters that take place. Some of them are mass casualty events, and some of them are just inconvenient. But the truth is, we have to have a plan, especially if we're interested in emergency services. We have to have a plan of operation that will allow us to move away from normal communication infrastructure into an emergency mode and provide ongoing communication. That brings us to volunteer services and amateur radio. If you think about your history there in the Dominican, look at the number of hurricanes and this does not include flooding. It does not include electrical and other outages. Just look at the hurricane history of your Dominican Republic. It's obvious that something needs to be done on an ongoing basis to ensure that adequate communications take place. Communication interruptions don't necessarily involve a mass casualty event. A small outage in an important place can cause a lot of problem. So we're talking about electrical grid, public safety, cell services, and especially internet services. We could have public safety, radio, we could have cell services, and not be able to send a written document or a spreadsheet, an inoculation or inventory or prescription inventory, a body count inventory, any type of written document. So you can imagine having to send a prescription medicine inventory over a voice service. It would take forever. So Winlink is the gap there that provides and bridges the internet email system over HF, VHF, UHF radio. Landlines, cell phones, satellite phones, land mobile radio networks, the internet are all dependent on vulnerable infrastructure, which depends on cable power, water, fuel, and people. The people is the important part here. You can think about even satellite communication. It has its vulnerability, as does microwave. If the tower is down or frozen or damaged, and the antenna and the infrastructure is damaged, or there's no power to run these things, you still have infrastructure. So what you're looking for is a bare bone system, a simple system that will allow you to provide communication without any ongoing communication infrastructure. So in the United States, that's called a primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, or PACE plan, which is a prearranged plan to switch to other modes of communication as required to maintain communication, not only for hospitals or emergency services, but for everybody. So the preferred solution for an emergency service in normal times would be public safety, normal cell service, voice data. But as we move down into the where things are really bad, where there's no infrastructure whatsoever, we run into items that are not readily used, and when they are used, they're absolutely necessary to have. One of the benefits to Winlink is that it's not expensive compared to some of the normal communication infrastructure. It's not expensive at all. A complete Winlink station costs less than a Motorola P25 handheld that a policeman would wear or that an emergency services would use. So the cost is not an issue. The issue is getting people trained and the awareness that such a system exists. There's two main purposes or uses for Winlink radio email and emergency services. One is to bridge email over radio in order to reach the internet. And you can mix radio users with internet email users, utilizing multiple recipients and attachments, small attachments. The other item, which is becoming more and more important, is obtaining situational awareness, ground truth. In other words, within my jurisdiction, within my area, within my span of control, within the area that I have a responsibility for, what's the situation to the north, to the east, to the south. So the use of specialized forms is used within Winlink and built in Winlink in order to provide that information. Number two does not require a lot of training. All you have to do is stick your head out of the window and see which way the wind is blowing and report it. You have to be able to use Winlink, but it doesn't require any emergency communication or as much emergency communication training. So what are the lessons learned? The lessons learned are alternate communication methods are essential. They're immediately available to resilient communication as a primary and alternate location must be ensured. So you have to have this readily available. You can't make it up all of a sudden. It never works. Too much stress and things never go right. So practice, drills, exercises, working with your agencies, your country's agencies, so that they trust you, so that they know what you're doing, so that you know what they're doing, so that they can do things that you can't do and allow you to do the things that you can do. Who puts generator fuel, diesel fuel in the generator? Who keeps up the batteries for the alternate communication walkie-talkies that are used in those situations? Volunteers are excellent for that, and it allows the trained volunteer to provide an important function so that the professional can do the things that volunteers can't do and spend an ample amount of time getting them done. Volunteer resources can be trained to install, operate, maintain these alternate resiliency systems. I mean, you do it at home, you might as well do it for someone else. It's alleviating the agency personnel again to perform other functions that volunteers can't do. And all of this requires a major commitment and a relationship with government, and government has to believe in the volunteer. The Winlink radio email system falls in that category with no infrastructure needed other than the medium of propagation. It's extremely resilient. It's very inexpensive. Winlink provides email from any point on Earth, including the middle of the ocean or within your own county or your own country or your own jurisdiction. Messages are sent via HF, VHF, UHF, radio, and through Winlink Telnet, which is the internet. Why would you use Telnet? If you possibly can use Telnet during an emergency, you want to do that because you want to alleviate and leave the frequencies available for those that don't have any other choice. So it's good to know that Telnet is also available to alleviate those frequencies that would be used by people who have no other choice. The Winlink software and the use of the system are free of charge. We don't charge anything. We ask for a volunteer contribution, but if you don't pay it, it doesn't change anything. Hardware costs are minimal, less, as I said before, than one Motorola P25 trunking handheld. Winlink provides, that would include the generator. Winlink provides 100% accurate transmission, or it provides no transmission. It uses AES 256, which is our government accepted transmission encryption, without any intervention from the user, but not on the amateur bands, which is an advantage for an agency not to use the amateur bands. Still use amateur radio operators, but on additional frequencies that will not have contesting and QRM. Winlink is an interoperable store and forward system providing time and frequency independence. Winlink is interoperable.
Por
If
mañana te
you
digo.
Hello?
Go ahead. I already muted him.
Are we okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Winlink is interoperable between commercial radio, amateur radio, internet email, cell phone, satellite, or any other service. So you can email somebody on a commercial service if you're on ham radio, or you can email a ham radio operator if you're on another service. It has that ability to cross services and make it completely interoperable. So far has what I said understood, do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, it's fine by me.
Okay. So I just uh, gave an example of some of the equipment that I'm talking about here. This is from our U.S. National Guard on the left. It's amateur radio equipment. That's a TS-480HX and a backdoor modem and computer and other under DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, Transportation Security Administration. If you look at this is on the congressional lawn in Washington where they gave a demonstration to Congress, and that is in a vehicle. That's another drop kit using amateur radio equipment. The Shares Resources Program, Department of Homeland Security Shared Resources Program is using amateur equipment. The only commercial equipment on this entire list here is a Red Cross radio message server, not on the amateur bands, used in St. Croix. So there's a lot of diversity that can happen here with opened up radios or radios that are commercial. So Winlink is really the most interoperable radio system in existence today. Many emergency management agencies, medical, law, fire, at all levels of government now deploy Winlink for communication resiliency. Tremendous growth over the last few years due to volunteer assistance to government agencies on government frequencies. Getting the foot in the door requires some knowledge, some patience, and some education. Supply the necessary no infrastructure resiliency needed for an emergency. When all else is gone, you still have this option. I just put this in here as an example of the WinLink network. This is connectivity for 24 hours, all of our different services, including amateur and other. Looks like most of this is amateur radio, but not all. This map can be seen and you can visualize and get the detail of the current situation by going to the WinLink website under tools and looking for propagation map. So how does WinLink work? I don't know how much people care about this or know about it, but I thought I'd mention it. The WinLink architecture in the regular conventional mode, it looks like this. We use the Amazon AWS, the Amazon cloud, and we have virtual servers that move into the internet. They are connected directly to the RMS or the remote message servers on all bands with all modes, whether it be packet, Vera FM, Vera HF, Pactor 4, Pactor 3, etc. We don't use Winmore anymore, but Vera has taken its place. We don't use robust packet. Some people do in some countries, we don't. We find that Vera FM is far superior. And it integrates well because it has, for non-amateur use, it has the encryption capability with a checkbox. Those RMSs are scanning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, waiting for a user to initialize them. And when it does, it passes the traffic and then continues to scan. On VHF, we don't scan, but VHF is linked into HF and Arden or mesh networking and Internet Telnet all meshed together. So the Winlink system doesn't care what mode is being used as long as it's accepted by the system, nor does it care where the message comes from or goes. So there's not so much used on the non-amateur bands because it takes a tremendous amount of coordination. But on networks that are coordinated, the radio-only mode for WinLink, which does not even recognize the internet, is used. So I could get on our government shared resources frequency and contact the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, which is approximately a radio message server, which is about 8 miles from my home, put a message on there, and it would travel over radio from RMS to RMS based on propagation algorithms. From here, let's say I wanted to talk to Robin Liu in the Oahu, Hawaii EMA on Diamond Head. No problem. I don't need internet for that. Obviously, the volume is not as good. Obviously, they can't put as many stations on simultaneously, and obviously it's slower, but it works. When you don't have any other option, it's a lifesaver. We also have peer-to-peer, or one client station or end user can get on a frequency at a designated time when propagation is good on designated frequency and connect to another client and send a message. Um, the internet is not used. All communications by radio, and only 2 client stations are involved. It's 100% error-free transmission, but we do not recommend this at all. It's a very dangerous process because if you have the ability to coordinate when you're going to be there and the frequency and the time of day and propagation, most likely you don't need WinLink. So the negatives to that are the time it takes, the frequency, and the mode dependence. Also, there's no internet or no radio message server, no multiple recipient messages coming over peer to peer. So this is a look at the Vera HF amateur radio message servers that scan 24 times 7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long, worldwide. This is a look at the Vera FM. This is a look at Pactor Vera HF USDH. This is the Shared Resources Program, which uses volunteers but has member agencies. So we have government agencies in small counties, we have government agencies in state, and we have federal agencies that use this system. And a lot of them use volunteers, which are hams, who are hams. The little H in the center of those pins means that they can operate radio-only mode if required to. In addition, an RMS that loses the internet, if it's configured properly on HF, when you connect to it, it can tell you that it's temporarily lost the internet. If you have no other choice, you don't hang up and go to another RMS. You go ahead and put it on there, your message there, and it will automatically go out on its own and find an RMS that does have internet. That's what those little H's are all about. So the Department of Homeland Security's, and I bring this up because it works in a lot of different scenarios where an agency does not want to expose the information it's sending. And worldwide, it's necessary to get off the amateur frequencies in order to have confidential encrypted information. And in addition, when you channelize frequencies and give a service a frequency without anything else interrupting it, the reliability increases dramatically. So for the Shared Resources Program, there are probably 2,800 to 3,000 participants, maybe 300, and I'd say right now, maybe 4,000 stations. the shared resources, Department of Homeland Security, Winlink radio email network has approximately 117 radio message server gateways with access to the internet over 120 channels. Interoperability, and we do have VHF involved in this also. It's very difficult to be in a large city downtown and try to use HF radio. So VHF is critical when it comes to crowded locations and places where you cannot put up even a vertical antenna, a mobile antenna. Interoperability and resiliency are key to the shared system, especially with Winlink. The federal, state, and county and national state guards, Indian tribal organizations, non-government critical infrastructure companies and organizations, supply chains, and assistance when one state assists another are all a part of the Winlink emergency system. Shares Winlink is a common ground for communicating complex written messages when there's no other way. So I'm looking here at the main Winlink RMS screen. And I guess most of you understand Winlink Express. And there's a lot of functionality in this. This is what, as an end user, the program you would use. It's similar to email, an email client, but it has much more functionality and, of course, has its severe limitations when it comes to speed. There are two types of WinLink messages: simple text messages, which are fast to enter and send, and then messages that are binary or files or pictures and attachments. They could be JPEG, PDF, doc, Excel files, any other kind of file. We have a terrific encryption, a terrific compression algorithm that we use that can compress some of these files up to 80%. Depending upon whether they're already compressed. So the limit of the size of a compressed message is 120 kilobytes total size. Well, if you compress it 80%, that's still a substantial message. So using Word or Excel, it's good to be sure that you do not have picture logos on it, because the picture logo will slow it down, because the picture logo is liable to have as many bytes as the actual text on the file. We have a built-in JPEG picture editor or resizer. So if somebody hands you a message to transmit and it's too big, you can reduce the message. And if it's too small when you get it, you can bring it back out again. We also have form templates. Our government requires specific forms be sent called incident command system forms. And those forms are standardized. So we have those standardized forms. We have medical standardized forms. We have specific forms for state governments and other countries, and those can be found in WinLink Express. The advantage of using a form rather than an attachment is the form only transmits the data and not the format itself. So 90% of the transmission is transmitting the format, and we don't do that. The format exists in the client product. If it goes to email, it comes out as a text format, not as a form template, and the information is all there. I'll show you that in a second. Many standard government forms, user may create a form. You can build your own forms for government or for your own group. And we create forms. If your government asks us for a form, or you have a form that you want and you submit it to us, we can usually assist you with that. Oh, excuse me, I have a bad cold. So you compose a message. I'm going to skip this because most people know how to compose a message. Is that true? Anybody?
Yeah, I think we do. Everybody is muted, but I think the answer is yes.
Okay, well, the template here is sort of self-explanatory. Doesn't require me to explain anything other than before you send the message, you can look up there and all where the bold text is to the left, you have to post it to the outbox. The way you select the template is you get a message form and you push select template. And when you do, you get a tremendous amount of information. And we'll look at that. Selecting an RMS from a channel list is simple because we do all the hard work for you. We determine propagation. This is one method using a chart. We also have a map. So you obviously would want to choose a green pin, which is an RMS that has a quality index of 50 or more. And as you move to the orange pin and then the red pin, the quality of the connection doesn't remain as good. It's still there sometimes, but it's slow. So if you purposely choose a green pin on the open session screen, when you open a session for one of the modes and you see, then you click on that screen and go to the map, you can see which radio message servers are available and to what degree. We also have, for people that don't know anything about propagation, a auto connect. So we can use our heuristics, our algorithms, and determine which RMS is best. And if it's a busy RMS, it will go to the next RMS and continue to go down the propagation estimate list until it reaches an RMS that you can communicate over. That's all done through that little auto connect. That's a new feature. And we did that because of a lot of agencies that use our system. The professional doesn't really understand propagation, so we do the work for him or for her. Very efficient. So here back to the standard forms. We've got over 100 special forms. Some of them look the same as most all of them, if you receive them on Winlink Express, will have the same format as the original form has. If you receive them on email, they will come in as a text form. So if you go to where we were before to the message, the empty message, and click template, standard templates, these are some of the standard templates that I'm discussing. American Red Cross has forms. Our state of California has forms. Canada has forms. Our Federal Emergency Management Agency has forms. We have general forms for medical. We have forms for different states. We have forms for radiogram, believe it or not, for amateur radio, and forms for weather. And we have United States forms for the earthquake. Did you feel the earthquake or not? All kinds of forms that companies and agencies ask us to put in there so that they can receive data in a format that they understand. Here's showing just one of those, which is the ICA forms for the US. And all of those forms are available, and they're standardized, government standardized forms. The bottom form is an ICS 309. So if you had 400 messages coming in and out during an emergency and you wanted to send that in an after action report, we can produce a file that will have everybody who participated in this exercise or this event and the time they did and who they spoke to. We can have that log available for management, for your agencies, to show that you actually did process this much data. So that's a small look at the forms. This is a general message form used by all of our agencies, regardless of level. This is an activity form. So if you are deploying in an emergency, you keep an activity log, and that protects you in for terms of liability and criminality. If somebody accuses you of something, and you show that you were at a different location during that period, because you've turned in your activity log, you're safe. Also, if you were asked to perform a function and you didn't remember whether you did or not, you can look at the activity log and see that you did or you didn't. This is a field situation report. It's a special form that is sent to different jurisdictions so that an agency can determine in any geographical area a situation, whether they had plain old telephone service, whether it was voice over IP, or whether it was plain telephone service, cell service, whether the text functions, whether the digital functioned, AM, FM broadcast, were they functioning? TV, is it functioning? Public water, etc., etc. All of these, and when you add all these together, you come up with a pretty good look at the area that you're responsible for. So these timely situation reports, weather reports, and other status reports are really essential to the people that operate a professional emergency management agency. They may be needed from a no internet location, and there's no way to get that information. So we offer those forms to provide that. And we also offer a CSV or KML file so that they can put them on spreadsheets or in a map. A lot of these, Google Map takes KML files, and so all of this could be shown on a Google Map. It could be shown in what's called ArcGIS, which is a big commercial mapping program. And it can come to them every time somebody puts in another report. It can add to the existing. It runs in real time. So when you're in an incident command center, Winlink Express can display the map showing the status markers of these reports. Do you have internet or not? And they keep a permanent record. So as an example, we have all types of ways that you can obtain this information by area. In other words, by specific grid square or coordinates, by city, by function, all types of ways, different time frames. It's all very flexible so that it meets the need of the specific incident that you're involved with. This is a Federal Emergency Management Agency Region 4 and Region 6 cyber attack exercise. And if you look at this map, you can see that if you look at no internet functioning, we decided we'll use red pins. So 4 major cities in those 2 FEMA regions did not have, this is an exercise, did not have internet. And we could show that, in fact, they didn't have internet visually. We also use that CSV file to show that in a professional system. So the state of our South Carolina provided this information from the same data to a much greater extent, showing the impact of the power impact, the electrical, the public works of the water, cell phone impact, broadcast report, overtime impact, landline impact, television, radio, broadcast impact, and the internet impact. It's just a few. The way we do this is by purchasing a little dongle that goes into the USB port of a computer, and Winlink Express, wherever you're located, will show the location that you are currently without you having to do anything or input any data. It's especially important when devastation is such that nothing is recognizable anymore, usually from a hurricane or an earthquake, right? So that's it. The system costs approximately $1,600 with the antenna. The modem costs approximately $2,000, or Vera HM FM, $69. But the ability to send email when commercial communication systems fail, we think is priceless. So that's it. I hope this helped. I would like to present, or have somebody present, a more detailed use about how to actually use WinLink and how to establish propagation conditions, how you can go to a forecast map, or excuse me, a forecast chart, and determine what bands are best for your operation at any particular time on a total 24-hour system. So all of this is available and usable, and the time you want to learn about it is not when you have to use it, because you're going to have enough stress without worrying about how to use this. This ought to be just automatic by the time you run into any emergency communication. Are there any questions?
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Okay, let me just think. Not just the club, but also the presenter, because I happen to be, I'm in Georgetown Heights, New York, and this have been the best presentation that I had. I had never been in Winlink, but we are going to have a drill, the AARL. It's a regional drill with link needed. It's going to be Saturday and Monday, and you're getting ready for that. And this presentation was wonderful. And the possibility, I mean, I cannot explain, my gratitude to the club, to the SDRA, and also to the presenter, the creator. And I just want to ask you a question. It's regarding, I noticed, because I'm planning to download the software, that you have the version Express and you have the Vara HF. Is there a major difference between one and the other?
Could somebody repeat that?
I'm going to be participating in the AARL drill in the next few days using Winlink. They are suggesting for me to download the version that have Vara HF. And I can see that if you have the two of them, meaning you have like the Express and the option for Vara HF. What is the major difference, or there is any, in terms of using Vara HF rather than the regular WinLink?
Okay, there are two protocols. One is Pactor. That's a hardware modem that costs approximately $2,000. It comes from Germany. It's a primary mode used by WinLink. And lately, we've adopted a secondary mode used by Winlink called Vera HF. It's just as good, and it costs $69 for the first call sign that you have and $49 for any other call sign that you have. So the difference is that one is a hardware modem and the other is software in your computer, but both work equally well. Also, there's no additional charge if you're using a commercial service and not amateur radio. If you're using a government service or a non-amateur service, you can get the transmission is encrypted, because worldwide with amateur radio, you are not allowed to obstruct or hide the content of the message. So we had to publish our compression algorithm on our website in order to be legal worldwide for the ITU. So we are legal worldwide, but for agencies and government services that do not want the public to see the message content, Vera provides free that encryption. That encryption costs $190 if you're an end user for Pactor. It's like you could buy a Barrett or a Kodan commercial radio, and it costs $4,000 or $5,000 or more. But you can buy a 7300 for $1,000 or less, and it works just as well, right? So in our government, if you're a federal agency, you do not use the FCC. You use what's called the NTIA, and they allow opened up amateur equipment. The FCC, if you're an agency, does not. And they have a Part 90, which has to use type accepted equipment, and it's very expensive. If you're a ham, there's no point in that. So it's if a government agency gets involved and uses volunteers, they can also use the volunteers' equipment, which means it costs them nothing, and they get something for nothing. They just have to have a little patience and understanding. Does that help?
Yes, more clear cannot be. That is why now I know that in that particular regional drill of the American AARL, I'm here in New York, but I'm a ham in the Dominican Republic. They are recommending to use bar. I can hear now that it's because, cost effective and work as well. Thank you for your time and for the patience of my colleague here in the presentation.
Now, packet, VHF, UHF packet is dated. It's not modern. It's not fast enough. It is not robust enough. So Vera FM is at least three times as fast as 9600 baud packet. And you could digipeat with it. You could do all kinds of things with it. I would highly recommend that you look at that as well. Any other questions?
We missed your video, and we are seeing a map. I don't know if you shared change any video.
I didn't get that.
We lost your video, and okay, now you're back. We were seeing instead of your camera, we were seeing a map, but now you're back.
Okay.
I think somebody had the hand raised. Greg, go ahead, Greg.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Greg. I'm based in Costa Rica in Central America. I met a few of you guys. Steve, thank you so much for the presentation. Very useful information. We have a main RMS channel here with some agreement that we have with the fire station or the central fire station in Costa Rica. I have two questions for you. Number one, I saw the templates for Winlink. Uh, I don't know if it's possible that you can customize the templates for your location. I saw a few of them. The templates used for US activities like Aries or so on, but I'm not sure if we can maybe, customize that for our country here in Costa Rica. We have like
You can
uh,
easily.
all right.
Easily, somebody that understands HTML can build one. If you go to the Winlink website, it tells you how to do it. And if it's an agency, like your government, we'll do it
Right.
for you. We'll do it for you.
Okay. Okay.
If you
Do
need
you
it
need
in
some?
Spanish, we'll give it to you in English, and you send it back in Spanish, and we'll put it on there.
Okay, perfect. Do you need some parameters that we need, or we just need to
Um,
request you via the government?
those are all on the Winlink website.
Okay.
I tell you, there is a group called the Winlink Programs Group, Google Reflector. If you go to the Winlink support page, and look, you will see the Winlink Programs Group Google Reflector. There
Okay.
are 4,600 people on there, and we have mentors or we have teachers on there, instructors that can answer questions. If you ask a question on there, not only do you get the benefit of the answer, but so do 4,600 other people. So I would recommend that anybody interested in Winlink join that reflector. And if you want to put your own Groups.io, your own reflector on for Winlink so that it's in Spanish, be my guest.
Right, perfect. Thank you so much. And the second question for you is, I have seen this kind of QRPs, radios, some of them from Chinese market, some of them are called the USDX, which contains the lower bands, and a few of them have the availability to support cat control. I'm not sure if for emergency operations it is possible to set up like like a Winlink station or portable station with this kind of radios with just use, the interface, a Raspberry Pi. Is that one of the capabilities that we
You,
can
you
use?
get you get what you pay for.
All right. But I mean, in a scenario that we need something quickly and easy because we have huge hills here in Costa Rica, for example. So it's very hard to communicate the capital with the rest of the country. So we can use MVS antennas, for example. So I'm not sure if this can be a feasible
You're in
operation.
Costa Rica.
Yes, sir.
The International Telecommunication Union has given you an RMS to put up, and it's up and running. And so has most other countries in Central America. We're not responsible for keeping them up and running.
Mhm.
The local people are responsible for keeping them up and running, but we had them all throughout the Caribbean and all throughout Central America and Mexico that the International Telecommunication Union sponsored.
Okay.
And in other words, you don't have to be in the same country. The radio message service doesn't care what country you're in.
All right.
It functions the same way regardless.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, Steve.
Sure,
Nice to meet you, sir.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I think Olga had their hand raised. Olga.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you, Sdra, for this meeting, and thank you, Mr. Steve, for joining us today. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for the talk. And yes, I do have two questions here. You were talking about the basic equipment for using the program. Can you please go over that a little bit more? Like if we were to start with the using Winklink. So what type of equipment are basic for us? Please.
Okay. If you look at the program Winlink Express and go to if you have let's say Vera, and you click on the open session screen and click on the radio setup, you will see the radios that we have programmed. Almost all ICOMs, commercial amateur, almost all Kenwood, commercial and amateur, almost all Yaesu, commercial and amateur, and the major Barrett Communication owned by Motorola out of Australia, Codan Communication, ICOM, all the commercial radios also are available. So all the cheap Chinese radios, we don't use that code because they usually have copied somebody else, and it changes dramatically from one version to the next. But most of the radios we can control with the software. We control what band you operate, what frequency, what power, what mode, and what sideband, what filtering, the whole thing, just like you would manually. It's all automated for Winlink, optimized for Winlink. That help?
Yes, that helps a lot. Thank you. And the other question is more about what are your best advice for starting with Winlink?
My best advice is you can never taste a meal by reading the menu. So reading about it and studying it is excellent at beginning, but then you have to get on and use it. So conceptually, you look at the menu, experientially, or if you, for your experience, you get on and you use it. And that's the best method.
That sounds just right for me. Thank you so much.
All right.
To follow up on Olga's comment, in the following sessions, the upcoming sessions that we're going to be having later on, we're going to be talking specifically about equipment, how to configure and use the program. So that will be for future sections of this kind of meetings. So anybody has another question? Annabelle, go ahead. Another YL from our group.
Thank you, Santiago. Thank you, Steve, for this meeting. Is for me very interesting, and I just want to say thank you. It's a very useful program, and I hope to learn more about Winlink. Thank you.
Sure. My advice would be to if you have an HF radio, to just get on and I would always, if you can, get a paid for version of Vera, because the free version of Vera is very slow and doesn't do what is needed. That's why you have to pay for it. But I would definitely get on with a paid for version of Vera, and you know, that small time you spend learning could save some lives. It does all the time. You know, I remember when your next door neighbor had an earthquake, and there was a tremendous amount of Winlink used by our military and our civil authorities, by religious organizations that came down there, and by sailors that went through your country to get there.
Yeah, I do remember that. Thank you for the advice. Anybody else have a question? So to kind of summarize everything, I think that we can take 3 points maybe from this. First, we need government participation, and we have to gain the government trust as volunteers. So to know the value that Winlink and we as HAM can bring to the table. We have to be trained, so we need training to properly use the tool. And finally, we have to raise awareness of Winlink and the benefits of the tools. Speaking of government agency, we have here with us tonight one of the executive for our regulator from Indotel, Mr. Javier Garcia. He is in the meeting, and I would like to give the word to him if he has anything to say. Javier, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Do you listen to me?
I hear.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Steve and Santiago, for this opportunity to say some word commenting about around the Winlink. First, I want to know how many countries from the Central America is present in this meeting. I listen somebody from the Costa Rica. I don't know where is Olga. Where are you from?
I think I understand. You want to know what countries are using it?
No, I think he
no,
meant how many countries are here tonight. We
from,
have
from Central America, exactly.
well, we have Costa Rica, we have Mexico, and the DR. Olga is, I think, in DR right now.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I want to tell you something. We make agreement in 2018 with ETU, the URR for the region of America, and Indotel with Contelca. The Contelca is the Commission of Telecommunication for Central America. And one of each country from Contelca has installed a Winlink. Mexico, Costa Rica, Honduras, Salvador, Dominican Republic, and Panama too. So if you want more information about the how work the Winlink, please try to contact the government of agencies or the each country of the Central American. They have installed a Winlink. The Winlink is very important for case or emergency telecommunication or emergency. I'm very happy with the explanation, Mr. Steve, and we support that we have to increment the radio amateur. It's possible to install a Winlink in each country because in Central America and the region of Caribbean, where we are very exposed to how do you say, and we in the route of the hurricane, for example, and the temporary initially in June and finally in November. So, and in case, for example, I don't know if you remember the Hurricane Maria affect to one of the island, Bermuda, for example.
With Hurricane Maria, our government, our military, and our amateurs, all three used Winlink. And Winlink was used in the Federal Emergency Management Agency field offices by our government service, our Department of Homeland Security. For also, the American Radio Relay League went down there with Winlink, not as successful as our government, but because the amateur bands propagation just wasn't there. With the government, we have instead of having just several bands of frequencies, the government has all the frequencies, all the bands. And so we had great success with Maria with our government.
Mhm. No, exactly. I want to finish my intervention to say that what our experience about the damn important is to use to install Winlink in all countries. This example of Maria in Puerto Rico, we support that when the communication going down, and in La Bahamas too, a few years ago, with the other can affect Bahamas, they use or installation in Dominican Republic for to try to help the communication. It's clear, is the amateur radios is operated by the amateur radio. So you need more information about our experience uh, with Mr. Santiago. I can to give you all of you more information about our experience. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Sure, my pleasure. One of the obligations of the government would be to, one of the tasks or one of the jobs for government would be to set up the minimum criteria or training necessary so that when a volunteer is used, the volunteer knows exactly what to do and what not to do, especially what not to do. And because they're familiar with radio, but a lot of people are only familiar with radio and not familiar with the procedures that government uses for emergency communication. So having courses or having a pamphlet or a handbook that has to be approved by the agency for each individual, so that when an individual is called, they already know what that individual capability is, what that individual's task can be, and that individual has been trained both on commercial equipment or public safety equipment as well as amateur radio equipment. And that alleviates the professional to do things other than menial tasks that a volunteer would do, so that the professional can do a better job at what he has to do for his own function or his own job in that agency. There's a lot written about that. Our government provides a myriad or a lot of courses that will allow an individual to become certified or receive a certificate stating that they have a certain level of expertise or knowledge about how to operate within the government's procedures. And because of that, because the volunteer wants to, they're not working for the dollar, they're not working for the money. They're working because they want to, because they enjoy it, because they have a passion for it. And that goes a long, long way when it comes to emergencies. Reliability of volunteers sometimes comes into question because you always would want a volunteer to handle his family first. But if you have 100 volunteers, half of them will be there at service. And that is very important. Different countries handle that in different ways. Fortunately, Winlink does not have political boundaries. So if you are in Dominican Republic, you could use a radio message server anywhere that their radio waves can travel. It doesn't matter where it is or where it's not. And that's one major advantage of Winlink. It's common among all countries. It's the same. so that there's no having to learn it for this country or having to learn it for that country. And I want to apologize to everybody for my voice. My nose feels like it's about 5 pounds bigger than it is right now. I've got a cold, the sniffles, and I can hear that my voice is not normal. So I apologize for that.
No, it's okay. You sound fine. Before closing in, because we don't want to keep you too long, so you can get some rest and maybe get better, I want to pass the word for to Mexico. He has his hands raised. Mexico, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Santiago.
I have to apologize, but at this moment I have a heavy rain and a thunderstorm, and I need to turn my laptop off. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Ismael.
A good explanation, Steve, of Winlink, but I have to go. Sorry.
Okay.
Be safe. Mexico, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Santiago, and good evening to all. Mr. Waterman, thank you very much for this wonderful and very useful, very valuable presentation. Just a minute ago, you mentioned something in relation to the different resources available for training with regards to emergency procedures. And from the optic of the ham radio operators, the main interest for us is basically to be able to reach those resources. If you could later share some of those links and references, we'll really appreciate it.
Okay, well, I could tell you right now that the government, the federal government, pays each state government a certain amount of money for these courses. And then the state determines, based on its particular need, which one of the courses they want to offer their professionals and their volunteers. And it varies quite a bit from state to state. Obviously, a state that has hurricanes every year is going to be different than a state that has sunshine every year. So the amount of money that's spent on emergency communication in a hurricane state or a tornado state or a state that floods a lot is going to be greater, and the need for volunteers is going to be greater. But they all take the same training. And the reason why they have to take training is because ham radio operators have no particular method of handling emergency communication. There's no set standard. Every country has a set standard, and it's necessary for the volunteer to fully understand how that process works so that it's second nature. The last thing you want to do is go into an agency as a volunteer and tell them, you want to do this or you want to do that. That ruins those relationships. So you're in a role where you do not command anybody. You're in a role where they may ask you to empty the wastebasket, or they may ask you to move bottles of water. They may ask you to do anything. But if you cooperate with them, then sooner or later you'll be doing what you've been brought in there to do. We had some pretty good success with Mexico along those lines. And as the climate or the weather and as circumstances become more unstable and change, this is going to become more and more important to an agency.
Absolutely. And just to bring back one of the points I wanted to make is precisely, I think you touched on it, that ham radio operators do not have a particular method or say procedure for emergency communications. And because our role is basically an auxiliary role, I think it's very important for us as ham radio operators to become familiarized with how the emergency agencies actually go about their procedures, so that we can become more useful in the role of being an auxiliary to their efforts. And so my question was originally pointed to the training resources where we could tap on locally and develop a sort of streamline a procedure that we can say.
What I would do would be to ask the agency that you want to become involved with. They're the ones that every agency does it a little bit differently. In the United States, there's an overall national process called the National Incident Management System. And all levels of government use the National Incident Management System. So they all get along with each other. They all use the same processes. They all use the same frequencies, the same procedures, everything. So, but every country's different. So when you go, if you're in every emergency starts at the local level. It doesn't start with the federal, with the national government. It starts with the local level. So what I would do in a country that I don't know anything about, I don't know how it works in Mexico so much. I don't know how it works in Dominican. I don't know how it works in Costa Rica, but the agency that you want to serve does know. And if you take the time to ask them and show a genuine interest that you really want to learn, they'd be, I'm sure, you can override some bad history and overcome that and become useful, because they're the teacher, we're the student, and they want to see us perform after they teach us.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. I will take note, Mexico, and maybe we can sit with Javier at Indotel, and maybe work something with him about the training. Thank you very much, Steve.
Sure.
Okay, everybody, I will thank you for being here, and we're gonna be leaving Steve free so he can get some rest, maybe get something to eat.
Blow my nose.
Maybe blow your nose. Steve, thank you very much for doing this.
Sure.
I know this is just the first of the series of presentations, but I really appreciate it. We have a pretty much better understanding right now about Winlink that we did before we started the presentation. So we are, as a group, as a club, we are very grateful to you for doing this tonight.
My privilege. Thank you for inviting me, and don't hesitate to call me if you have any questions or concerns. And I've always got, it may not be correct, but I've always got an opinion.
Well, I'm a lawyer, so I always have an opinion also. So I will take your word on it, and we're gonna be keeping in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Get well.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, Mr. Steve.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Buenas noches. Pura vida. Chao.